First question, I've got the first question, and that
Okay.
is this tied in any way, shape, or form with merit pay for teachers?
We don't have any idea because there is nothing but a pilot program right now in place for merit pay. There's nothing in stone about merit pay. There's pilot programs in the districts right now, and those pilot programs are using their own criteria to determine what constitutes merit pay and what doesn't. So there's going to be a bunch of different hodgepodge of standards right now in those districts that are determining what constitutes merit pay.
I've got a question. I know Texas was able to stop Common Core, and then it went to C-Scope, and they were able to stop C-Scope in the last couple of months. What method did Texas use to stop Common Core and C-Scope?
They never signed on to it to begin with, on Common Core, from what I understand.
That's right.
Okay.
Texas, Alaska, Nebraska, one other state didn't sign on in the beginning.
Good for them.
Good for them.
Good for them
But there's about 20 other states that did sign on that now have pending legislation against it.
to get it right there.
So Mississippi is going to have one as soon as the legislature convenes in January.
Thank you. Thank you.
I'd like to thank you very much for what you're doing.
Speak into the microphone.
Thank you very much for what you're doing. Maybe I can help just a little, is that, the first argument everybody says is, but don't you like standards in the education system? And the bumper sticker response can be, yes, but we don't want to lower the standards. Common Core actually lowers the standards.
It does, and all the research out there that you can find says that standards have no effect on student achievement.
That's right.
There you go.
There
In fact, one of the
Bunch of dumb
persons that
kids.
developed Common Core even admits that the standards are based on junior college. So when they say college ready, they're talking about junior college.
But they're not ready for the junior college right now, so where they're going to be when this gets in place.
And so my actual question is, could you explain a little about outcome-based education? That seems to be where Common Core came from, and it apparently is a bad thing.
Outcome-based education is the only thing that I can relate that to is the testing component. Everything is being relayed and tied back to the testing component. So they call it data-driven instruction is the terminology that's used through the educational establishment. So basically, they're looking at test scores to get pretty much all the information that they need to drive their decision-making and policy-making. And I haven't seen anything improve. ACT scores have been stagnant in the state of Mississippi for 20 years. They've hovered around, maybe changed 1/10 back and forth around the number 18. Whenever No Child Left Behind came in and we had to develop state standards and we had to develop these state tests, ACTs have not changed, even though we have the high stakes testing now in high schools that we didn't have. And we complain about our dropout rate, but many of these children are dropping out of school because they have not one chance of passing these state tests because they're moved on through school and they can't read.
Right, right.
So, this dropout prevention thing is a joke in many ways because we have passed these kids through, and when they get to high school, they have no hope of passing these state tests because they can't read anywhere near grade level. So, we're causing our own dropout problem. And to me, it's cruel for a child to go through school for 12 years and pass their classes and then can't walk.
Do these standards apply all the way through college and higher and postgraduate?
They are only K through 12 standards at this point.
Again, thank you for coming. We had a legislator here a month or two back that was also addressing Common Core. My question to you is, as a legislator who is opposing Common Core, what kind of pushback are you getting from your peers in the legislature at the state level?
The main thing that I've heard from the chairman of the Senate and House Education Committee is they're afraid that snowball's rolled too far down the hill. And I think one problem, to be quite honest with you, is Governor Bush came to Mississippi and met with the legislature, and I worked very closely with his Foundation for Excellence on Education to develop the third grade reading bill, the literacy bill. And Governor Bush is strongly out there pushing these Common Core standards.
Yes.
So it's very hard for some Republican folks to question another Republican that's out pushing something like this. Well, surely if they're pushing it, it can't be bad. And now we've had Mike Huckabee that's come on board and has said, you know, that there's nothing wrong with this. But I don't know that Mike Huckabee's ever looked at it. I mean, you know, what I'm saying, even without the political consequences of having a national-based standards group that had no input from the states, just the fact that the standards are being sold as something that they're not is enough for me to say, wait a minute.
Right.
Thank you so much for coming to speak to us tonight. Before I give you my question, I actually have a statement to make to you. I would encourage you to take one of our DVDs with you tonight if you haven't seen it. 3-part DVD. Now, I was told Saturday by a local teacher that beginning today through this coming Thursday, that teacher and other teachers will be sitting in on an indoctrination class put on by a team from Texas, apparently getting them ready for Common Core. Do you know anything about that?
No, I don't, because Texas has not adopted Common Core. So it
Okay.
could be some folks from Texas that are working for one of the consortiums who's developing the testing or some of the supplemental material for Common. There's a huge market in adopted Common Core. There's a lot of money to be made because everything's going to have to be brand new.
Right.
Two of the big companies that are behind this very, very solidly, General Electric Corporation and Microsoft.
Exactly.
One makes hardware, the other makes software.
Right.
Yep.
And like I said, part of the Common Core standards say that the tests have to be all done online by 2016.
Senator, you said you've talked with some teachers that are against this thing and are afraid to come forward. Why?
Well, some have agreed to come meet with me with some folks at the Capitol, but there are some that don't want to rock the boat because, unfortunately, in the educational community, if you rock the boat too much, they either tell you to go find another job or they find a reason to get rid of you. Because I'm one of those rejects from the public school system that decided to run for state senator.
Good for you.
Keep in mind, all of your teachers, public school teachers in Mississippi are on a 1-year contract. You do something that upset the apple cart,
Yeah.
they don't have to renew your
My own
contract.
personal experience was I had children in 5th grade that didn't have a prayer to pass 5th grade because they've been moved on. They scored barely minimal on the state test in reading and mathematics. They did not have an IEP or a 504 plan. They were not special education students. And basically I was told that these students had to pass. And I just wasn't going to pass them.
Yes, ma'am. I have a question, kind of question statement. I've written letters to the editor, spoken to the governor's office, talked to Jeff Geis, our rep, and about the longitudinal data system. To me, that is like a huge can of worms. It goes into effect this month, although it was passed in 2011. And at the moment, it escapes me. Basically the congressman who submitted the bill, I just cannot think of his name, but basically it was handed to him through Mississippi State, the people there that are basically going to be facilitating this whole longitudinal data system. And
Well, there's a board of governors that's supposed to be appointed, and nobody knows who the board of governors are, and I haven't been able to find out.
well, that's I would like to know if there's will be or has there been any move to bring up whether in special session or whatnot to put a halt to this longitudinal
No,
data system.
there will be no special session. The first chance that I will have to do anything with this is in January when the legislature reconvenes, because there will certainly not be a special session call for this, because this is not high on the radar of most folks in government. It's high on our radar, and we need to make it high on the rest of the folks' radar. But, you know, we just recently formed a Senate conservative coalition. There's 11 senators that have stepped out and said we're going to promote conservative principles. Just because Republicans are in control does not mean we're passing conservative legislation.
Right. Give us an acceptance of discussion for them to pass it, and to me, and hardly even know what's in it. The fact that stated within the bill, it spells out that children will be tracked from birth to basically post-secondary. that in and of itself, I mean, who's going to be in charge of that?
Well, that's what I'm saying. The bill was passed before I got in, and I haven't taken time to read the bill, but at the Flowwood meeting, when I went to the Central Mississippi Tea Party meeting, I spoke with a lady named Rita Anderson, who's done a lot of work on this, and Rita was kind of recanting and reciting some of the bill, and she talked about the Board of Governors that would be over this. And so far, neither Rita nor I have been able to find out who these Board of Governors are, because they're supposed to be the ones, and they're supposed to be like, each different agency in the state is supposed to have one appointee, and I can't remember, IHL would have one, maybe the Department of Health would have one, Department of Education. It was several different departments that would have a nomination or an appointment to the Board of Governors, but I still don't know who that is.
Senator,
Yes.
I'd like to thank you for being here. I'd also like to thank you for what you're doing. I want to give you a couple of, little bit of ammo. At the last Republican club, Congressman Zuber and Senator Watson were there. A couple of us spoke to them about Common Core, and they both indicated they were against that.
Well, I'll tell y'all, this is, you know how the healthcare thing is just all snowballing? This Common Core thing is beginning to snowball. You all have made enough noise, you put enough stuff in social media, you ask enough questions. I'm finding that the Christian Action Commission people are coming up to them, just regular church folks, saying, what do you know about Common Core? You know, and what are you going to do about it? So get your religious community involved in this. They can be a tremendous lobby. Okay, because they stand to lose a whole lot in this ball game right here. Michael Watson is a dear friend of mine. Hank Zuber, I do not know him as well. I can tell you this, I have 3 speaking engagements this week on Common Core. I will be speaking to the Jackson County Republican Club Thursday night on Common Core, and I spoke to the Hinds County Republican women this morning. I've been to Jackson and back this morning, so folks are beginning to take notice.
Congressman Zuber is supposed to be at the Republican Club, so you'll get his meeting there.
I've met him before. I just don't know him that well. Michael Watson's in the Senate, and he is a member of the Senate Conservative Coalition that we just formed about 2 weeks ago. So I know Michael Watson pretty well.
Well, my question is, where is the Education Committee? What's their source for the research that they're doing?
They're doing
My
no
senator,
research.
Bryce Wiggins.
They're doing no research. I mean, I'm just being honest with you.
That's what I thought.
If anybody's doing any research, they're doing it on their own. There've been no committee hearings. You know, and I'll be honest with you, I took them at face value myself. And then when I finally kept hearing and I kept seeing this, I'm like, I got to look at this stuff myself. I just got to look at it. And then when I finally looked at it and looked at the standards, besides everything that I'd read from these folks that sat on the panel and then refused to sign off on it, when I looked at the standards, I'm just like, oh my goodness. You know, it's like, I could see it myself. And I'm not a math teacher, but like I said, I went through a fair amount of math in school.
Right.
And, I did graduate from college with good grades back, way back when. So, and I'm trying to get some folks in the college community. I'm supposed to have a meeting this week. And you all need to just pray that the efforts that I'm making will come together, because I'm trying to get an informal panel together of some college math teachers to look at these standards. Because I can tell y'all, they haven't looked at them.
Right.
And they're having enough trouble as it is getting kids to stay in college and to be able to do the work. So they're not going to be happy when they see that these standards are lower than what they are.
Thanks for coming. I'd like to know if you have a recommendation of a central person or a central organization, and where can we apply the pressure to get this thing stopped?
Well, the legislature is the only people that can stop it. The state board could stop it, but you can put all the pressure on them that you want to. They're not going to stop it. It's going to take a legislative act to stop this thing.
And explain, what do you mean?
It's going to take a bill filed by a legislator that's going to have to be passed through the Senate and the House in Jackson, and it's going to have to be signed by the governor. And that's the only way we're going to halt it.
We send our tax dollars to Washington. They send them back down in the way of federal education money. How would our education system be affected if we kicked out Common Core?
Well, we just need to look and see what Alaska and Texas and other 4 states are doing that never adopted it to begin with.
Right.
They're making it just fine. Texas is pretty far ahead of us right now.
Okay. Angela, thank you for coming to speak to us.